You're listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. The show that gives pastors and church leaders the clarity they need to protect their people, property, and ministry.
Welcome back to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. I'm your host, Ron Wadley with Insurance for Texans. We help church leaders protect their people and property with wisdom and clarity. In today's episode, we are talking about both the bad and the good of having a roof sublimit. Let's start with a small church in San Antonio. Their finance committee had done a lot of things right over the years. They have weathered inflation, rising utilities, and staffing pressures. So when their insurance renewal came in this year, they were relieved to see some cost savings. They signed on the dotted line. Then a summer storm changed all that. A violent Texas storm rolled through town and dropped baseball-sized hail directly on the church. When the storm passed, the damage was obvious. The church had a large, flat, commercial-grade TPO roof, and the force of the hail damaged the membrane. Water was dripping in every corner of the sanctuary. After a close inspection, the roofer's estimate came back at $150,000 to replace the whole roof. The committee wasn't worried because they had property insurance. They filed the claim and waited for the adjuster. A few days later, the adjuster sat down with the policy and flipped to a page, 2 words that no one at the church had seen when they signed the policy documents last fall: roof sublimit. For wind and hail damage, the policy would pay a maximum of $50,000 towards the cost of the roof. The church had saved money at renewal, but now they were staring at a $100,000 difference that they would need to fund. Here's the key thing most churches don't realize. A roof sublimit overrides your total building coverage. You can have $2 million in property coverage on paper. But if the policy has a roof sublimit, that endorsement controls the payout for wind and hail damage to the roof. Insurance companies use roof sublimits to protect their bottom lines. Roof damage from Texas storms are their biggest loss driver. By capping their exposure on the back end, they can offer lower premiums up front. But let's be fair and clear. A roof sublimit is not always bad, but it is never harmless. There are a few situations where it can make sense. First is to lower premiums. For a church fighting to keep the lights on, a sublimit can make some amount of coverage possible when full replacement cost isn't affordable. Second is churches with older roofs. Some carriers won't insure an older roof at all without a sublimit. In those cases, limited coverage may be better than none, but only if the church understands the risk. Third, some churches self-insure by choice. If a church has a strong building fund and intentionally decides that they can absorb the cost of a new roof, a sublimit can be a calculated financial decision. But let's not gloss over the downsides. Number 1 is massive out-of-pocket exposure. Commercial roofs are expensive. When the sublimit is far below the real replacement cost, the church is effectively uninsured for the most common Texas loss. Number 2 is lender problems. If your church has a mortgage, most lenders require full replacement cost coverage. A roof sublimit can violate that requirement. If the bank finds out, they can force place insurance that costs far more than what you saved. Number 3 is total loss complications. Even in a major disaster, the sublimit can still cap the roof portion of the claim. That can derail rebuilding and leave the church short of the funds needed to restore the building properly. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most churches that end up with roof sublimits didn't choose them. It's just that they were never clearly explained. This is where a general insurance agent fails. They see a lower premium and celebrate the savings. They don't calculate what a commercial roof actually costs to replace and don't mention the downside. They sell the deal and move on. A church insurance specialist does things differently. We start with the math, value the roof, and show you the gap. That's the difference between stewardship and gambling. The church in San Antonio thought they bought certainty. What they really bought was a risk they didn't know they were signing up for. At Insurance for Texans, that's why we talk about the promise of certainty. Certainty means transparency and knowing the numbers before the storm. If your church has a roof sublimit, it should be because you chose it. If you're not sure what your policy says, we should talk. Contact our church insurance team at insurancefortexans.com. And speaking of the promise of certainty, we wrote the book on the topic. Get your free copy at thepromiseofcertainty.com. I'm Ron Wadley, and this has been Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, protecting Texas churches. Until next time, remember, church insurance is most useful when you understand what you are buying.
Thanks for listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance. Until next time, remember, insurance isn't just about policies. It's about safeguarding the mission God has called you to lead.